5 cinematic tips that can be done on any camera, and we're going to demonstrate it with this, the RX100 Mark III Video Creator Kit. When Sony first approached me to help them launch this new bundle, it really hit it home for me. It really touched on a lot of nostalgia spots. Back when I first started making videos 15 years ago. I started with a point-and-shoot camera. I shot everything with it, all of my high school video projects, all the dumb little YouTube skits with my friends before YouTube even blew up, and for some reason a bunch of swimming music videos because I was part of the swim team. That little camera really helped express my personality and what ultimately drove my passion towards video creation. And like many of the helpful content on this YouTube channel, I want to help new creators out by equipping them with knowledge that I wish I had back when I first got started. So while this video is sponsored, I just want to reiterate that all 5 of these cinematic tips can be done on any camera. Yes, including your phone. But the RX100 Mark III in this bundle has a lot of cool features that help make shooting videos a lot easier, which you'll learn throughout this entire video. Let's get to unboxing. Opening up the Video Creator Kit, you'll be immediately greeted with the spare battery. The bundle comes with a total of 2 batteries, which was plenty enough for each day of our Yosemite trip. Underneath that, you'll find the rest of the 3 items. The first one is the camera, the RX100 Mark III. While the RX100 Mark III is not the latest model in the series, it is by no means outdated. The camera is capable of shooting 1080p up to 60 frames per second, and it has a selfie flip-up screen. More on the camera later. The bundle also includes a 64GB SD card, which provides plenty of hours of video recording, and it also comes with the new RX shooting grip, which not only is a tabletop tripod, but also doubles as a controller to control the zoom and the recording of the camera. Perfect for vlogging. Tip number 1, avoid shaky footage. Movement in film is super important. It's what separates a video from a photo. However, I see a lot of people walking with their camera trying to capture something, which inevitably causes a lot of shake in the footage. So this tip is to really challenge yourself to look for different types of movements in the scene. It's as simple as finding things like water coursing, leaves rustling, clouds moving, etc. Having the camera on a tripod for shots like these definitely helps, especially if you want to speed up the footage later to make a time lapse. If you're capturing a landscape where nothing is really moving, you can actually do a digital zoom in post-production. A small amount of push-in zoom is all you need. Just don't zoom with the camera while you're recording. It's gonna look too cheesy. It's gonna have this home video feeling, which we don't want. Now, if you don't have a tripod, going handheld is fine too. Just try to stay as still as you can. With the RX100 Mark III, there's the steady shot feature, which helps minimizes the micro jitters in the corner of your videos, sort of stabilizing your shot in a way. And if you're going to vlog, I would avoid walking and talking if you can. You can have some of that, but definitely mix it up with some stable shots where you place the camera and the tripod down. If you're vlogging with the RX100 Mark III, make sure you turn on face detection autofocus. That way the camera keeps focus on your face. Tip number 2, challenge yourself to shoot more in between 50mm and 70mm. That's what smartphones call portrait mode or the 2x camera zoom. Now, people tend to use the wider focal lengths for a wider scene and zooming into a tighter focal length whenever their subject or object of interest is too far away. That's natural, that's what a zoom lens is for. However, challenge yourself to shoot more in between 50mm and 70mm, even in a wider scene. And if you need to fit your subject in the scene, just take a few steps back. Immediately, you'll see a huge difference in your shot. That's because a tighter focal length helps compresses the background so your subject and the object of interest don't feel too far away from one another. Versus if you're just shooting wide, it just doesn't really have that epic feeling. Again, you want to use a tighter focal length versus shooting wide and walking close to your subject. It just doesn't give that same compression. The beauty of the RX100 Mark III is you can get much shallower depth of field compared to other cameras of this size. The zoom range of this camera is equivalent to a full frame 24 to 70mm, and this has an aperture value of f1.8 to 2.8. Which means you'll get blurrier backgrounds and helps isolate your subject from the background and making them pop more in the scene. In addition to that, the fast aperture value makes this camera extremely good in low light. It minimizes the noise and grain in a dark scene. Tip number 3, shoot 60 frames per second for all of your B-roll. Although this is a very cliche tip on YouTube, I still see a lot of people doing this incorrectly, so let me help you fix that. Let's take a look at the scene of the fish swimming by. We capture this in slow motion, however, the motion doesn't look that smooth. That's because we were shooting at an incorrect shutter speed. A good rule of thumb for shutter speed is always doubling your frame rate, and since we're capturing this in 60 frames per second, our shutter speed needs to be at 1/125. If it's any less, we're gonna see this choppy playback anymore, and it's not gonna look as smooth. When you're slowing the footage down in post, make sure you slow it down by 40%. Now here's a quick side tip. When you're shooting in slow motion, you actually have a bit more freedom with your movement. You can actually do a physical push-in shot with your hands now, or even a walking push-in shot, as the slow motion will compensate for the obvious camera shakes that you would see in real time. If your camera can shoot in 120 frames per second like the RX100 Mark III can, feel free to use it. Just make sure your shutter speed is 1/250. Bonus, if you want that 1.8 to 2.8 super shallow depth of field and blurry background look while maintaining the correct shutter speed in slow motion, use an ND filter. You can pick those up as additional accessories. Now, ND filters are like sunglasses for your lenses. It allows you to maintain the correct and preferred camera settings. Take a look at these two shots here. While both have the proper exposure, one uses an ND filter and the other was compensated by raising the shutter speed. The shot with the ND filter looks more natural because there are motion blur, while the other looks quite jarring. If you don't believe me that it's natural, try waving your hands back and forth. However, guess what? The RX100 Mark III has an ND filter built in. Tip number 4, lighting. I'm not talking about bringing an external lighting source with you wherever you go. I'm more talking about the lighting in the scene and learning to work with it. Oftentimes people confuse bad lighting in their photos and videos as them just being bad at taking photos and videos. But the truth is, even pros can get terrible results when they are faced with bad lighting conditions. Harsh lighting, hazy weather, gloomy days are all inevitable. If you're out on a sunny day, wait until sunset to get the shot. Golden hour is around the time where the lighting is absolutely perfect. If not, try to wake up a little earlier than usual for sunrise to get the shot. Let's go ahead and take a look at this scene that I got from Yosemite. This was during high noon and the sun casted a pretty hefty shadow on these rocks and mountains. The scene still looks pretty nice, but we aren't seeing too much details. Versus this shot that I got around sunset. Massive difference, right? Now, it's not always possible to shoot at those times, so if that's the case, just work with what you have if shooting during high noon is your only option. Simply finding shade or positioning your subject so the light isn't as harsh can help a lot. So cloudy days like this makes for good footage as well because the clouds are blocking the sun, casting a nice soft lighting on everything, whereas if you try to shoot something that has direct sunlight on it, it's just gonna look super blown out. So days like this is pretty good. Tip number 5, after you're done editing, you gotta do a little bit of color correcting and color grading. A minor color adjustment can go a long way and it can separate you from the other videos on YouTube. Consider dropping the highlights and upping the shadows, adding a bit of contrast or some saturations. After that, simply adding a LUT or a film preset can give your final video a unique look. Some editing software comes with some free LUTs, or you can search online and find the ones that you like. Just make sure to dial down the intensity and adjust a few settings to polish up your film. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the final product together. This is my Yosemite travel video shot on the RX100 Mark III. And if you're interested in a more advanced travel filmmaking course, I will have a playlist somewhere here on the screen. And that's it. Go out there and create something cool, but don't forget to tag me and Sony so we can check out your work on Instagram. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.